Redditors who got a useless degree, how did it turn out? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1, QSM. Well, I personally figured getting a chemistry degree would be an easy way to avoid having a useless degree, but then I found out all entry-level lab work is open to high school GEDs and pays less than fast food where I live. That said, hazardous waste is good work if anyone is feeling it. Comes with its own retirement in the form of chronic poisoning, but you get life insurance as well, so someone you know will be happy when you pass. Story 2, history degree here. I took a full-time job unrelated to my studies because it was June 2020, so I figured I should have something at hand. Ended up loving the job, so I didn't continue down the path to my master's or credentials for teaching. Glad I didn't as well from talking to my peers. Now I work in public transit, and it's honestly much more fulfilling than I ever would have thought. Story 3. I got my BA in French and an MA in French linguistics. I loved every minute of it, but never found my planned career in teaching French. I ended up teaching computer science courses for a while and then became an instructional designer. I just retired last month, and I don't regret any of it. Story 4, political science degree. Ended up deciding not to go to law school. I work in insurance, but because I developed a skill in writing, I am able to do a lot of my work via email with client services and get paid pretty decent, and I have a work-from-home job. Education is never useless and always helps, even if it's not the path you originally thought it would be. Story 5, geography. It's not useless at all, but many people believe it to be. Every company and government uses GIS, Geographic Information Systems, on some capacity, but I digress. Everyone I know from school is gainfully employed, but there are very few set paths, the exceptions being environmental consulting and GIS analysts. That means the 50 people in my undergrad program probably have 40 different job titles, or even types of jobs. Geographers are also social scientists or physical scientists with a social science lens, so really good at critical thinking and looking at issues from many angles. I've been working many non-academic jobs at a university, and it's super fulfilling. Pay would be better in private sector, but I'm happy. Work-life balance is great, and I love all the different people that work in universities. Story 6, not my story. I met a man who said he had a useless degree. I asked him what it was. He said, Victorian Studies. But then steampunk became popular. He is doing really well as a maker now. This is his shop, Brute Force Studios. He was also a judge on a show on steampunk crafts and wrote a book. Story 7, English and political science double major. Worked in federal government for about a decade, then transitioned into consulting. I used to think my degree was useless, but it's become clearer to me lately that writing, editing, public speaking, and critical thinking were skills I developed in college and subsequently took for granted. A lot of people come out of college and graduate school without having those skills, and if anything, it seems to be getting worse. ChatGPT has leveled the playing field somewhat, but a lot of people are using it as a crutch, and it shows. Story 8, art degree. I am an elementary school teacher, not art teacher. I do so many school-wide art projects with students. I love making art. I would like to say I do my own art outside of work, but I'm too tired. My whole life is an art project, an installation performance piece. It's exhausting. Story 9. I have a history degree with a minor in law and politics, and now I'm a business analyst at a medium-sized insurance company. I would like to be at a museum or an archives, but insurance is stable and it pays the bills, and I get a matching 401k bonus and corporate expense account, so I guess I don't have that many regrets. I've thought about maybe running for office, though, or serving in government at some point. Story 10, bachelor's in theology. During COVID, I got a job in a government call center, became a team lead within a year, then pivoted into HR. Turns out a degree that's supposed to set you up to lead people spiritually is also really useful in a corporate setting, and you also don't feel like your soul's being crushed while doing it. Story 11, film degree. You can find my name in the set lighting or grip section at the end of Marvel movies, Top Gun Maverick, and this summer's F1 amongst network TV shows and a bunch of small indies you've never heard of. Story 12, English and creative writing. Was so deeply agoraphobic and socially anxious that I could barely function before my degree. Studying something I was genuinely passionate about made the push towards independence actually achievable. If I'd studied finance like I'd planned, I definitely wouldn't have made it to the end of my time at university in one piece. The fact I'm nearly 30 with a wide group of friends and a comfortable medical administrator job is entirely because I used my time at university to grow into adulthood securely. College can be valuable in various ways. Just sucks that it's so expensive that going for pastoral reasons isn't easy, realistic for so many people. Story 13 art degree. Had a career in illustration, drawing comic books, and moved that over to graphic design, which turned into weird permutations of web design, which led to product user experience, which is where I'm at now. The same layout skills I learned in illustration make sense in layout out a web page, a form, or a dashboard. It all ties together. Message to mom. Useless degree my ass. Story 14. English degree. Had no idea what type of work I would end up in, but had a completely unjustified amount of faith that things would work out because I had wanted to major in English since I was 6 years old and reading Ramona Quimby books. I applied for everything under the sun after college and ended up working as an admin assistant for a tech company. That led to doing technical writing, which led to various roles across various tech companies. It turned out just fine. Story 15. My wife has a bachelor's degree in gender studies and is now a physician with 3 doctorates, and she's doing her master's at Harvard. She's collecting letters like infinity stones. Edit so I don't have to keep answering. She's a practicing physician. She makes good money and saves lives and publishes papers. I'm sorry people are feeling insecure. I never understood why she had trouble dating because she'd always say dudes would get weird about her work, jar, school, badge, awards. I'm so glad you guys lower the bar so much that all I had to do to land a hot genius was be like, I think it's so cool that you're so amazing. I'm proud to know you. Story 16. I have a son with a bachelor's and master's degrees in music, but didn't pursue music as a career. He works as a manager and trainer at an upscale gym in a large city and makes about 6 figures a year. I am still proud of him despite his not pursuing his degree career. As long as he is happy, that's what matters most. Story 17. Theater degree, partner at an ad agency. I used my degree multiple times every single day, and my 20s were guaranteed more fun than most of the suits who make just as much as I do now. It's risky, but I say do what you love and know when to pivot. Story 18. Studied computer games programming, a degree I switched from computer science in my first semester. Got a job as a programmer for a studio that made gambling games, and then 6 years later got a job at an indie games publisher. Got laid off from them 18 months ago, but work as a games programmer for a big games company now. Not so useless as my dad feared it'd be. Story 19. I went to art school. I am now the innovation product manager that tells the STEM majors what to make. I did get a top 20 MBA, which put my resume in the right pile, but I work at a company that makes art and design tools. It's very obvious to everyone what made me the right pick. I needed both degrees combined to get here. Story 20, philosophy degree. I joined an anarchist collective that put me in contact with the chair of the economics department in my university. We hit it off and he told me I should apply to the program, so I did. I was consistently one of the best students and got a research assistant position. Now I make 6 figures in the energy sector. A lot of people say that that's to be expected with an econ master's, but what they fail to see is that I wouldn't have that master's if it weren't for my philosophy degree and the choices I took with it. Story 21 English degree. I work as a bank teller and absolutely adore it. It has everything I loved about retail. People, cash registers, and none of the bull. Co-worker drama, scheduling, basically being on call, cleaning up spilled food or broken glass, etc. I also get paid enough that I can live comfortably and have good benefits. Story 22. I was told my degree in education was useless unless I was a teacher. I left after 2 years and tutored remotely for another 2 years. I decided to leave education entirely and felt awful for not using my degree. I now work in insurance and use a lot of my education skills to better teach customers about insurance and their policies and help save them a lot of money. It feels good still using the skills I learned in college while helping another demographic in another way. It's not how I thought I'd use my degree, but I'll take it. Ida. Something funny about insurance is that most of us have unrelated degrees. So many of us took the job as a placeholder until we found something better, but there really isn't better. Story 23. Originally was going to school for graphic design, AI, and everything in it scared me. Plus, I was just about over going to school, so I just swapped my degree over to an interdisciplinary studies degree. A year later, I'm a safety manager making double what I was. Great thing about interdisciplinary degree is it can be whatever you want it to be to the employer, because no one knows what the hell it is. Story 24. Bachelor's of Mathematics, Bachelor's of System Science and Mathematics, and a Master's of Control Engineering. My problem was timing. Got absolutely screwed by dot-com bubble for my first degree, so went back for the next 2, only to hit the 2008 cluster. I was sitting in waiting rooms for interviews for jobs with people with more degrees and 10 years experience for the same entry-level jobs. Never got into my field, ended up creating online tutorials for college textbooks, my math lab, for a decade. Only slightly bitter about it. Story 25, degree in commercial art, graphic design. Got it right before advertising changed from teams of layout artists, hand-drawing lettering and artwork to a couple of guys on a computer doing clip art designs. I minored in math, so backed into a job as a chemical lab technician because they needed someone who could calculate. In 15 years, I went from lab tech in a wet label to a research lab and into a research chemist position. In the subsequent 18 years, I've moved from chemistry to supply chain management to distribution center specialist. The best advice, never stop training. If there is any training your company offers and/or will pay for, do it. If nothing else, it pads out the resume. Story 26, BS in psychology, minor in neuro. In practice, I did a neuropsychology track, but I didn't have the bio courses taken for the neuroscience degree. Yes, I had the neuro classes -1 capstone. Yes, I had one of the 2 neuro capstones as well. I ultimately went on to law school. I actually feel that's really been useful, but only because I went on to law school. That said, I needed the neuro courses as well because it's helped me notice things in cases. Not that I can be like, this guy has damage to his hippocampus and can't remember anything, therefore his testimony is inadmissible. I can, however, be like, yeah, something's funky here. Can we get a second opinion? More often than I see my colleagues. They do also ask me a lot of questions about medical evidence, which leads me to assume my degree gave me a fair degree of knowledge that's useful outside its field. Story 27, graduated with aerospace engineering and English literature degrees. Thought the latter was gratuitous. After 15 years of technical work investigating why aircraft engines failed, moved into a non-technical management position that required understanding why the human part of the organization was failing. Story 28, I have an associate's degree in business administration. I literally have never seen any job posting list an associate's as a requirement or preference. Every job that I've seen that required a degree required at least a bachelor's. Low-skilled or manual labor jobs typically require no degree at all. An associate's is really only of practical value as stepping stone in education, not on its own. I have a director-level job at a 9-figure company. I got very lucky with my first job and then just kept climbing using my experience as leverage. Story 29, music performance. I now book musicians, DJs, and various entertainment for weddings, corporate events in Toronto. The company I work for does about 1,500 events annually. Love my job, and I still get to play music with some of the most incredible musicians I've ever met. Story 30. The degree is useless itself, but it allows me to check a box and apply to better paying jobs. Sociology, criminology minor degree got me into fraud and then eventually into AML compliance work for a major bank. Been with the company 8 years or so. Doing pretty well for myself. Sucked to pay off private student loans with insane interest, but I'd say it was well worth it in the end. Story 31, BA in sociology. It was interesting and I learned a lot. Nothing that would get me a job, but it rounded me out as a person. I'm mortgage-free at 58 and can retire at 60. Not rich by any measure, but I did okay. I ended up working in arts and culture. I know it's a luxury, but it wasn't about the appropriation of skills for the workforce or a career. Out of high school, how do you know what you want to be doing in 20 years? I salute those who know, but for a lot of us, an undergrad degree is a worthwhile means to figuring out what might come next. Story 32, BA in astrophysics. Went to a liberal arts school and we all got BAs, then a master's and PhD in history of science. While I never used either degree directly, they allowed for some fun permutations on my early career path. I taught physics, chemistry, and English in Tanzania with the Peace Corps. Then I worked in science outreach, presenting assemblies and teaching classes all over the state. After grad school, the recession hit hard, so I randomly pivoted into entertainment journalism. Neither degree was applicable, but I'm pretty sure the weird degrees got me interviews. Did that for 5 years, writing about TV shows and hanging out at Hollywood parties. Then I decided I wanted a real paycheck and a stable industry. Took a brief stab at marketing before going to law school in my early 40s. Now I make money. It's nice. Story 33, anthropology degree. Pre-med focus. I got into medical school. Got my top choice of residency. I've been in practice 20 years. Trained dozens of med students and residents. I've been hospital VP and medical director for a large multi-center health clinic. Currently in a well-paid job that I'm coasting towards retirement. I'm still under 50 for a few more months and should hit my number in the next 5 years. Let your passions open doors for you. Just be willing to walk through those doors. Story 34, music degrees, all the way to DMA, doctorate. Teach college band, mostly a good gig. Had to work on Sunday to do a parade I hated, but spent today playing Civ 7 to make up for it. Great flexibility in schedule. Good pay for the amount of time I actually work, though the regular 60-plus hour weeks are a drag on the weeks I do actually work. And I get to make music with some really great young folks. Every semester I get to pick music I've always wanted to dig into more and get more in love with, and it never disappoints. That being said, the developed alcoholism to try to sleep, given I work some nights until 10 p.m. and have to be up at 6 for family things, really sucks. Story 35. Hey OP, I got a very low mark in my degree to the point of it not being useful for the aligned industry, but I never had any interest in that industry anyway, truth be told. My degree, regardless of grade, has been endlessly useful through my career. Some practical, some social. I can tick the box for degree on job applications. I have the training and knowledge of how to arrive at answers that may not seem obvious. I have the social advantage of being able to refer to my reasonably prestigious university if it comes up in conversation. I learned the hard way that there are levels of intelligence in people and what their identifiers are. To be clear, I don't class myself as intelligent, but I met people who were. I understand the difference. I have lifelong friends who have professional careers that I could, if necessary, ask them to describe and mentor my kids on. The list goes on. Story 36. BS in psychology. I have a useless piece of paper as you need at least a master's if you want to do anything with this degree, and I have no desire to be a counselor or what have you. LOL, at least my degree was free. I work for a balloon company that does balloon decor and twisting. It's a fun job and I love it, but I'm definitely overqualified for the job. LOL. Story 37 theater degree. I got technical training through the military reserves and have worked in that field for decades. Several jobs have required at least a bachelor's just to get hired, but it didn't matter that it was theater because I had training specific to the job, almost like a separate minimum education requirement. Story 38. Got a European history degree, had a pretty decent career working in events services, sporting events, concerts, convention type stuff. Got pretty depressed thanks to being bipolar and almost killed myself a few times. Spent some time in the hospital and got ECT, which made me lose a ton of memories, including a lot of what I learned in college. Anyway, after deciding that events services was never going to pay super great, I decided I wanted to be a welder. Welding pays unless you can weld pipe or something highly specialized, which, had I done any research, I probably could have figured that out. Found a school that sounded like a scam. It was $500 a semester plus books. They would find me a job and I would basically get paid to learn welding. Turns out I am a welder, but the school also taught you plumbing and pipe fitting. Turns out it wasn't a scam, but a United Association affiliated school. The Union for Plumbing, Pipe Fitting, Welding, and HVAC&R. Somehow I managed to join the UA without any experience or knowing anyone. 5 years later, I became a journeyman and have made more money in the first 3 months of this year than I made in 12 doing event services. So after all that, I got a history degree, meandered a little bit, and became a plumber, mock pipe fitter. I even transferred some of my credits, and the school I thought was a scam was actually accredited, though the local CC, and I was able to get an AS. It's been a long, strange road for sure, but my useless degree set me up for an interesting life. Story 39 art major. I started driving box trucks for a few companies out of college for 3 years. Then one of my wife's friend's husband asked me to come help his company install windows. After a year and a half, quit because it was terribly managed. Started building houses with a crew my brother worked for. After 2 years, decided the only part I actually enjoyed was painting. So I asked to just paint for the company. Went off on my own after a year. Joined a paint company and make around 35-hour chore. I love to draw and paint. I just struggle to find time and commit to sitting down for other reasons, but I still art. Story 40 degree in studio art. For the past 30 years, I've worked as an artist for monument companies. I engrave designs into the granite, portraits, etc. It's very intricate work, and I love it. I make my own hours. I've recently started to design the monuments as well. Story 41, fine arts degree specializing in oil painting. My businesses are involved in carbon fiber repair, high-end bicycles and race cars, and custom painting, high-end bicycles. My degree does help in the design aspects of some custom paint jobs, but I really took a lot of the get-it-done mentality I learned in school to help me build my businesses and learn the skills I use every day. I knew nothing about carbon fiber repair for a decade after graduating. My first career was in professional gymnastics coaching. Story 42, trumpet performance degree from Juilliard. Now I'm a criminal defense attorney. Spending a lot of time prepping for one high-pressure moment, on stage or in court, was an essential translatable skill. Also, knowing that most work comes from peer referrals, the people who succeed are more sociable than talented or skilled. I feel my work is more meaningful, but compared to musicians, lawyers are miserable. Everyone I used to work with was pretty happy. Now my coworkers, etc., are all cranky all the time. I have a real salary and health insurance, but not convinced it's worth the vibe. 310 recommend. Story 43 philosophy degree. Now a bartender for 18 years or so. Really thought I wanted to spend my life in academia, but realized quickly that hanging out with undergrads for the rest of my life was not for me. Wouldn't trade the friends and family I've made along the way for anything. Constantly meet interesting people, hang out with comedians and musicians, and have a schedule that allows me to pursue all of my hobbies to any degree I wish. Helps that I work in neighborhood bars that tend towards older, 30s and up customers and creatives, and also that I've worked in the same bars for 15 years. Story 44, I got an undergrad in psychology, and most of it had me thinking this was just a waste of my time because all the high-paying jobs needed a master's or doctorate. I'm in my mid-20s now and work on a street team as a crisis worker for a pretty large city. Pay is pretty good for the area too. I'm quite content with this for the time being. I see no need to continue my education until I want to further my options, but working a part of street crisis services is extremely rewarding. Story 45. Bachelor's in Japanese and anthropology. It's worked out well, actually. I lived and worked in Japan for years. Now that I'm back in my home country, I work for a Japanese auto manufacturer. Started doing simultaneous interpretation and have since transitioned to a training data analytics role. I think that if you are driven and competent, you can definitely make useless degrees work for you. Story 46, bachelor's in sociology. Struggled for a while, got into sales as we often do, did well, moved around, got into sales for big corporation you have definitely heard of, eventually moved into operations during a restructure. Restructured again, and now I work in ops for big corporation you have probably not heard of. The job is a great fit, and life is awesome. Even the tough, lowly paid experience early on was pretty great in a lot of ways. Story 47, communications major. I job hop from one dead-end job to another. Much of it is my fault since I didn't focus on specific part of my degree and didn't build my portfolio in college, which is an important part of my degree. I've applied to hundreds of jobs after graduating, had my resume professionally rewritten multiple times, networked, etc. Maybe I'm just bad at life, lol. Story 48, studio recording degree. Bachelor of Music Technology technically. Not working in the field, but it gave me a foot in the door to a corporate side of the industry. More importantly, it gave me the skills to record and release my own music to a professional level, which is one of the more rewarding things I do with my life. Story 49. Not me, but I had two friends who majored in gender studies, which many people today would have a mental breakdown over. One of them works for an organization that works to stop human trafficking. The other works for the Trevor Project. Both enjoy their jobs very much. Story 50. It depends on your definition of useless. I got a pharmacy degree, and I'm now working in tech in experience design for fashion e-commerce. I make more money now than I did in pharmacy. Is my degree useless for now? Yes, but I also wouldn't have been able to get to where I am now because of it. So not useless, but not as useful right now. Story 51. Got a dual degree in history and humanities, classical civilizations. Ended up working in credit unions for years before I went to law school. 10 years out from law school, I'm a relatively high-level federal employee until the current admin tosses me out on my ass, I suppose. I make good money, and I'm married to someone in the private sector, making more than I do with a much higher ceiling than I'll ever have in public service. Can't complain. Story 52, English Language and Literature bachelor's degree. I worked in advertising for 15 years. Now I have a good job in marketing for a multinational and earn pretty good money. The friends I have from university who did the same course are mostly lawyers, journalists, academics, or also work in some sort of marketing. I can still quote a lot of poetry from memory, but I don't get the chance much anymore. Story 53, just FYI. Getting a college degree is known as a signaling device. Going through a 4-year program where you write papers and pass tests and presumably are responsible enough for the standards of a college or university is valuable, regardless of what your degree actually is. Obviously, the degree matters and your major will have an impact on your career, but there really isn't such a thing as a useless degree. Even if you get it in Polynesian basket weaving, having that diploma will increase your lifetime earnings potential far, far outside of whatever you paid for it. Story 54. Pretty good, actually. Liberal arts taught me a lot of useful soft skills, a lot about myself, and it gave me new filters to look at the world. I think Mark Cuban is being proven right, that liberal arts degrees are very much worth it if you take some initiative and apply them. Entitlement, not the degree, is the issue. Story 55 psych degree. It was wasted on me as a 20-year-old. Drove trucks, taxis, deli hand, admin work. 10 years later, got drafted into corporate training, probably because of the degree. I needed it. Soon running courses in stress management, communication skills, negotiation skills, team building, customer service, intro to PCs. It was the early 90s. The degree proved very useful, but I needed life experience too. Story 56 BA in Psych, which people fell all over themselves to tell me was useless. I love my studies. Hiring managers must love it too. I've gotten an offer at every job I've ever interviewed for. Now I write and manage research grants and make great money. Or at least I will until the current U.S. administration finishes killing my career. Story 57. I'm doubly qualified to answer this question as I have 2 useless degrees, BA in English Literature and BM in Classical Guitar Performance. I'm a building inspector for the city making 6 figures and have discovered that I'm actually more analytical than creative. I'm now pursuing a 3rd but hopefully useful degree, Civil Engineering. Story 58. I'm not sure how much I'd describe a degree as useless. Every degree can be useful, right? I guess it matters what percentage of people actually end up using that degree. I don't know what percentage would take it from useless to useful, though. With that said, the people I know with useless degrees off the top of my head: history, works in a lawyer's office, files paperwork; history, manager at an engineering company, kind of a one-man show in his department; hospitality, housewife; Spanish, works in IT on government contracts but can't keep a job to save his life; English, doesn't work, blames medical issues but it's all BS; philosophy, last I heard she worked at her dad's school for troubled handicapped kids or something like that. I think that school closed though. Now she just posts about church stuff all the time. Her husband has an engineering degree and almost immediately became a house husband when he graduated. They got married while in college. Art. She married a soldier, so it was probably difficult to find a lasting career. She was working in a frame shop in Alabama, but her boss wouldn't let a woman use any of the tools. I'm not sure what she's doing now. My dad got a business degree because he thought it would help him manage people in the Army. He said it was a waste of time. I have a friend with an architecture degree that couldn't find a job when they graduated in 2008. They work for the government, processing soldiers as they return to the U.S. They got the job from a family member. I have another friend with an architectural degree that was in the same boat. Luckily, they were already in the National Guard, so they took a full-time position as a deputy base architect. Not exactly what they went to school for, but it's architecture adjacent. Story 59. I got a studio art degree and wasn't ready for the amount of marketing myself and self-motivation I'd need to get a job, even though I went for the safe route of graphic design. Still, I went back to school and took courses for computer science and programming. I didn't get a degree, but I got an entry-level computer programming job for the state and worked my way up as I learned. Story 60. Musical theater. BA 2016. Vocal pedagogy, MA. Now vocal coach working 3.5 days a week, 30 weeks a year. I earn the same per annum as my partner, who works 40 HRs per week, 45 weeks a year. But I have a competitive hourly rate. I love what I do, but would like to be lecturing and acting through song at drama schools. Held back by my lack of piano skills. A lot of grads who didn't perform are now retrained as air stewards, HR, or nurses. Story 61. Communications. Took an entry-level supervisor job in supply chain after graduation, blue-collar industry where those type of skills and polish are sometimes lacking. Eventually got my master's, and now it's $150K, and I work from home. Figure out where your skills, whatever they are, set you apart in an industry and become a rock star there. Story 62. Chinese degree with a minor in Asian studies. Graduated in spring 2020. I had a conditional offer post-grad, pulled because of COVID. Ended up working at FedEx with my older brother, who also had a Chinese degree. He was working there waiting for his ship date for the military. Ended up working there for a year while looking for non-customer service jobs that use Chinese. I ended up not finding one I liked, so I got a job working for the state water company. Been at it for 4 years, and through promotions and raises, I've almost doubled my starting salary. I'll never be rich doing what I do, but I've definitely made out a lot better than others. Story 63. I majored in literature and writing. Made a good middle-class living as a writer, ghostwriter, speechwriter, and medical writer for 40 years, with only one 3-month period of unemployment. My advice to anyone starting out with a similar degree today is to seek work as a writer at a big company, academic medical center, or insurance company. The latter only if you're desperate. I also wrote successful novels, but even successful novels only pay the bills temporarily. Get a salary and a pension or 401k. Government at all levels also hires salaried writers. Story 64, Bachelor and Master of Psychology. Graduated in the recession and couldn't find a job to save my life. Ended up going back to school in 2013 for a MS in computer science instead. Now I do DevSecOps work, very different from working with very troubled kids. Did manage to pay for most of it with scholarships and working at a university, so at least I didn't end up in a lot of debt. 24K for all three. I'd be more salty if it landed me with more debt. Story 65, I got a degree in speech drama, geared toward being a high school speech teacher. In the speech classes, I participated in contests, debate, extemporaneous speeches, persuasive speeches, and the like. Turned out I didn't like teaching. I went to law school. Turned out all the experience I gained in speech contests put me ahead of my peers in researching and writing persuasive briefs, oral arguments in court, trying cases, and the like. Story 66, I went back and got a useful degree. I was a psych major with no idea how to turn it into a career. So after a couple years bouncing around random jobs, I got a job in IT. I enrolled in an online state university and got my comp sci degree in a year while I worked. I have always loved working and playing on computers, but for whatever reason, it didn't seem like a career path my first time through college. Story 67, Computer Information Systems. Should have been good, but I got it on 2003. I met guys in interview waiting rooms with 10 plus years of experience going for the same junior positions. I got a job at a hotel through a friend, worked in that business a long time, eventually got into tech support through another friend, worked that over 12 years. I finally got a programming job in early 2020, 17 years after I graduated. I'm very happy now, but man, it was a long road of regret. Story 68. I have a hospitality degree. Everyone was telling me it was useless while I was still in school working on my degree. I did use it. I worked in hotels and worked my way up to management. I left the hotel biz during COVID, and I now work from home full-time in a completely different field. Technically, I still use my degree because I book travel part-time. Story 69, BA in Politics and Philosophy, and graduated in 1995. After a couple of years in the temping trap and working mundane office jobs, I got a teaching job in Japan, where the only qualification to my name was my nationality, and I had an unrelated degree and was willing to work. Fast forward 30 years later, I've got a CELTA, initial ELT qualification, and a DELTA, postgraduate in English language teaching. Have worked in several countries, settled in Mexico City, where I'm a teacher-educator for English teachers. I've always earned enough for a decent lifestyle, but have always found a lot of satisfaction, learning, and development. My degree gave me a keen eye for discussion, debate, and thinking critically, and sometimes I wish I went the political analyst route, but in this day and age, this seems somewhat precarious. Story 70. Statistically, my degree wasn't useless in practice, but is in principle. At the time I got my philosophy degree, there was a statistic that showed that philosophy earned a little less than engineering. It was just that good. And why? Well, it turns out a lot of CEOs for large companies had a philosophy degree, and there was a pretty sizable wealth gap between the richest and poorest with it. So after I got my degree, the only jobs available for me were in marketing. So I did that. My company went belly up from the emergence of Google and Facebook ads. Then I went into the Canadian oil patch and used that money to fund my next few degrees, and now I'm fine. Now I'm on the higher end of the philosophy statistics, even though any success I found was in spite of it. Story 71, double major in Russian language and Slavic Eastern European studies. Was an interesting time to study in late 80s and early 90s. But the ensuing migration of Russians who moved here due to the same glasnost that interested me in the first place pretty much meant no one would hire an American for a Russian-speaking role. I got into website development, and that took me to some interesting jobs. But I've always felt a bit lost, professionally. I wish I had better direction and the guts to have asked for more career help early on. Story 72, Bachelor's of Political Science, and chose not to go to law school. Managed to land a spot in HR, recruiter, at a growing tech company in the 90s. Used that role to get into HR tech. Then spent 20 plus hours in that space at multiple major companies before I got tired of HR tech. Now I'm a consultant program manager on major tech projects, hoping to stay in consulting until I retire. Story 73, I got my bachelor's in horticulture, specifically turf grass science. Spent a few years working in major and minor league baseball. Now, I work as a waiter in a restaurant that's working hard for a Michelin star. I won't get rich in this business, but I work 24 hours a week, almost always have 3 days off, and have unlimited time off. Story 74, philosophy degree. Intended to become a solicitor, but found a passion being a teacher instead. Lots of people look down on philosophy, but when it comes to tick boxes for graduate roles, it basically fulfills all of them, unless it's especially a job related to STEM. Perfect all-rounder if you've not got a specific role in mind, and still, even today, considered a decent degree rather than a joke one, oddly more than other humanities like politics, etc. Story 75. My cousin got 2 degrees at 23, psychology and English, when he graduated, and the family was so excited and so proud of him. Now he's 31 and works at a boba shop. Not that there's anything wrong with working at a boba shop, but with 2 degrees, my expectation is not a boba shop, lol. Story 76, Bachelor of Science in Applied Sociology. Never used it once. I worked my way up in construction from laborer to field engineer to estimator and lead estimator, and now project manager for one of the top general contractors in North America. I have 4 kids and my wife is a stay-at-home mom, so I'm pretty happy with where I am and the path that got me here. Story 77, have a master's in theology, often thought of as useless. Even I have joked with others that it is useless. Honestly, I have a much healthier understanding of Christianity and myself because of the degree. I don't Christian like most. Anywho, now I tutor math, which is super ironic because of how opposite it is of my degree. Also, I work with 50-ish horses. Story 78. Got a degree in applied technology, which was basically a nothing degree that gave me no direction career-wise. But I ended up doing some networking and finding an accounting internship, and now I do legal billing for a large corporate law firm, which pays quite nicely for my level of education. Story 79, I graduated with a BA in anthropology from NYU in 1995. My first job out of college was making $4.25 HR at a combination record store, Tosh and Porno Shop. Do I regret blowing $100K on a useless degree? Yep. Is there anything I can do about it now? Nope. 30 years later, and now I'm an RN who does okay. Story 80, Communications BA. I manage a division of communications for a large government agency. My salary is $210K a year. I graduated 15 years ago. Spent my first 5 years in journalism and public relations jobs. Last 10 years working for the government. My takeaway, if you are the best at what you do, you'll make money in any profession you work in. Story 81. No degree is useless. If you learn something, apply it to different areas in life. I went to post-secondary for multiple degrees that I no longer use for what they were intended. For me, it's going very well. I'm incredibly happy not in the profession I thought I would be in when I was 18 or 20. Now 40, still using those skills, just not what they were meant for. Remember to enjoy the spice of life. Story 82. Maybe not useless, but when I started my college career 10 years ago, people were crapping on trade school. I started out in college and changed my major. I dropped out quite a lot. Biology, business management, dropping out, psychology, dropping out, saying it, and going to trade school and getting an AAS in aviation maintenance. I test airplanes at a luxury aircraft manufacturer, making just shy of 6 figures. Story 83. Dropped out of university for civil engineering in my second year. Went for an apprenticeship at a small IT company but got fired before I could complete it. After 4 years of my life, I had nothing to show for it. Went and studied a foundation degree in IT and networking while I did part-time work. Foundation degree is basically worth 2 years of a bachelor's, but not quite a full degree. Anyway, with that, I got my foot in the door at a mid-size IT company. And with that experience, I moved abroad and found work at a global firm doing IT support. I know the subject matter of the degree isn't entirely useless, but a foundation degree is very weak. I'm a believer that as long as you have a good head on your shoulders and a good work ethic, your qualifications don't matter so much. Once you've proven yourself as an effective worker, you can learn most things on the job. Story 84. Math degree. 4 years with a career switch. Haven't broken 6 figures yet. It's hard watching my peers in big tech and engineering hit that milestone in their early 20s, while I'm still lower class. But I'll make that 6-figure goal happen. I'm working my way up in the actuarial field, a math-related career, and I swear to God and myself that I'll make it happen. Story 85. Got my degree to teach, hated it, became a CNA while getting a criminal justice bachelor's, graduated and went into child abuse and neglect investigations for 2 years, got burnt out. Started my master's degree in social work and went into case management as an assistant to the director and love it. Good money to play secretary all day while working on my master's degree, and I'm guaranteed a position as a caseworker when I graduate. Story 86, Bachelor of Health Science. Nutrition. I wanted to become a public health nutritionist. Unfortunately, the year I graduated, the state government axed the public health nutrition sector from 400 staff to 11. Any job I went for, I was competing against people with higher qualifications and current experience. I got a job in a call center. I did marry my best friend from uni, though, so it was worth it in that way. He, too, couldn't use his degree. He was trying to get to med school, but although he had good marks, it was 5,000 applicants for 80 entry places. It's all a numbers game. Story 87, I got a degree in biological sciences, but never used it. I always wanted the graduate qualification and a way to step out of my hometown, but I never used biology or the sciences in any of my jobs. In fact, I went back to uni further down the line to get an IT qualification in the hope that it would give me more employable and valuable skills. Long story short, I'm now a project manager in a major IT consultancy, and I got the job when a recruiter called me one day after finding my CV and telling me they needed someone who was A, a graduate, and B, capable of passing a security check, and C, who had a project management qualification. So I ended up getting a graduate job in the end, but it was a roundabout kind of process. Bottom line is that I would still have gone to university when I did, even if I ended up keeping the first job I ever had, because it got me out of my hometown, gave me a different experience of the world and the people in it, and changed my understanding of who I was and how I could perform. I'll go as far as to say that anyone who goes to uni and gets a degree of any kind, but who doesn't use the experience as a means of exploring other avenues of personal growth, is missing a very big trick. If I could have life over again, I would go back to uni, even if I spent 4 years studying advanced photocopying. Story 88, liberal arts degree. Didn't go into my field of study, but it did give me the opportunity to live abroad. And then I went back to school to stay abroad. Went to a design college, but everyone back home thinks it's amazing that I lived abroad, and they don't question where the degree comes from. And I have a leg up in life experience. Helped me stand apart in the brutal job market. I'm a graphic designer now. Sometimes education really can open doors. Story 89, was told by my boss I needed a degree in anything to get a promotion. Got a liberal arts degree. Company dropped the degree requirements for promotions so they could promote the snitches. I drove a forklift before my degree. I still drive a forklift 15 years after I got my degree. Story 90, there are no useless degrees. It's education, not job training. I wish we would stop conflating these two things. Get an education in the area you love. Learn to think, learn to be creative, learn to solve problems, learn skills. And for sake, learn how to write coherently. You will find work regardless, but you will be a better you for focusing on the thing that makes you tick. Story 91, English literature and French minor here. It turned out great. My critical thinking skills are top-notch. My emotional intelligence is fine-tuned. I still read and study French literature because it's fun for me. Turns out reading all those different stories about different lives made me understand there were options to live my life how I wanted. I own my own business. Life is grand. Story 92, had big dreams of dental school and graduated with a BS in biology. Few little problems. I was extremely irresponsible, prioritized the wrong things, never learned how to truly study, and also would not put in the effort to learn, and went through the entirety of college living with undiagnosed mental illness. Therefore, I finished out with a whopping 2.4 GPA. If you know anything about dental and medical school, you'll know that you need 3.6 GPA. If you really know anything, you'll know that a biology undergrad degree is worthless. 15 years post-graduation and 3 additional degrees later, I'm an environmental engineer now. Out there well. Story 93, got my BS in clinical psychology with the idea of going to law school. But while finishing up my senior year, I started working at a friend's family's butcher shop. Loved working with my hands, but topped out at store assistant manager after 1.5 years. Another friend's dad worked at an audiovisual integration firm. I got a job there for 14 on HR without ever having used power tools, LOL. Worked as an install tech for like 6 years, getting better along the way, before I moved from Seattle to Las Vegas. Got a job at a casino as a service tech, then another casino as chief tech, and finally leveled up to a design engineer job with an AV consulting firm. Most psych degrees are very writing heavy. Take information, understand it, repackage it coherently, and turn in what you found. All of these skills are super valuable, but none of them are psych-specific. Story 94, English degree, 20. Currently a project manager for a large commercial electrical contractor, working specifically in EV green energy. As crazy as it sounds, I feel like telling a compelling story is a huge part of my day-to-day. Effective communication, managing the message to both the client and the execs. IMO critical thinking and attention to detail are foundational skills I was forced to develop in school and are transferable to any career or industry role. Story 95, BAs in Religious Studies and Greek and Roman Studies, MA in Religious Studies. At the end of my BAs, I did a certificate program for Petroleum Land Administration, but the O&G industry took a huge hit when I completed it, so I went for my MA. Then after my master's, I worked as an administrative assistant, then left that job and took a certificate program in accounting applications. Before I finished that, I became a project coordinator. I did finish my accounting applications program. Now I am a stay-at-home mom. When my kids are in full-time school, I'll do a bookkeeping program and hopefully become a bookkeeper. There was no plan when I started my RELS degree. I just found Eastern religions super interesting. Took a course because my now husband's family is Hindu. By the end of my BAs, I was constantly comparing Hindu myth to Greek myth. Every paper was about comparing gods, stories, or architecture. Overall, I really enjoyed university. Story 96, I know that you're going to get a lot of responses from the art side of the world, which is sad because those degrees aren't useless by a long stretch. I happen to have gotten the question, what are you going to do with that? When I made the choice to major in mathematics, it seems like unless you go to business school, actually useless, engineering or computer science, the general consensus is you got a useless degree from the type of people who feel free to judge how you chose to pursue education. Story 97, BA in music production. Program manager at a nonprofit. I graduated in June 2020 and my plans pulled back because of COVID. Understandable. I pivoted to inventory management in cannabis distribution since that was one of my 2 jobs paying for school. That eventually led to my current position managing data and software programs. I still use my degree every day, just not for money. LOL. Story 98, I have both a music and geography degree. I was a music teacher right out of college, but now I run my own small business where I attend craft fairs to sell what I've made, jewelry and hair accessories. For 2 years in a row, I've made almost twice what I made as a teacher, which is sad. Teachers should be getting paid way more. It isn't easy, but I love what I do now. I wish I had gotten a degree in business or something, but oh well. Story 99. Liberal arts, charn mass comm, charn finished school later in life, about 31. Did get a job with a local media company, but had to leave it for reasons related to stress and anxiety that ultimately made my mental health the worst it ever was. Now at 41, work at a warehouse making terrible money. Have zero interest in going back to school and graduating, again at nearly 50 YO. While I never had organic interest in a STEM degree, I always wished I was naturally smart enough to pursue one. That or medicine. Story 100 got my BA in art history because if I was going to spend lots of dollar learning something, it might as well be something I love, mostly because I suck at math. I have spent the last 10 years as a procurement inventory specialist for a nationally sought-after environmental fabrication company in my hometown. I am slowly getting over my fear of numbers. Story 101. I worked crap jobs for 10 years after college. Then I found a contractor job in a completely different field, making more than I would have in my field, but totally without the degree. ELO. Edit. Spent 6 years in college to become an art therapist. Did volunteer free work at homeless shelters, group homes, and churches in art therapy field. Never made any money on it, though. Now I drive kids to school and make big bucks. Story 102. No such thing as a useless degree. Undergrad grows your research and critical thinking skills, shows you can deliver projects in a timely manner, and can write. All of these qualities make you a better candidate, and recruiters know that, which is why a lot of jobs require a degree of any kind. I got a humanities degree and make low 6 figures working in merchandise, planning and retail. Story 103, graduated with a digital filmmaking degree in 2020. Despite that, I actually found some gigs filming through the pandemic. I absolutely hated it. Set culture was not what I expected, and I did not enjoy the work or the people I was surrounded by. Except for the very few conversations I had with the payroll and finance department, those guys were awesome. So, after some detours to retail jobs to keep the lights on, I'm now working my way up the ladder at a financial firm. Started off as a customer service rep and just recently got an opportunity to learn some new stuff. This employer is even willing to cover my licensing if I decide to go the route of advisor. I enjoy this so much more than I did film sets. My useless degree helped me land this gig. Just the fact that I have a bachelor's gives me a leg up on the interview process. No degree is useless, but some are definitely more revered than others. Story 104 BFA, art degree, making 6 figures in an unrelated field. Lots of luck and interviewed well in corporate America. My BFA did have us practice with mock interviews in a major metro city in real studios and learn how to connect with industry professionals. I just used those skills for a non-artsy office job instead. Several promotions later, I am a manager of a small department. I was so burned out by the time I graduated, I didn't even look for a creative job. Story 105. I have a master's degree in library science. I now work for a book publisher, just customer service though. The part that burns me up was that I got denied job after job at libraries I applied to, and the only jobs that were open were either part-time positions or full-time with low pay. The job I have now requires a high school degree at minimum and pays better than the libraries I applied to. So I get to work with books, but not in the way I imagined. It also blackpilled me on the field I studied in and realized my master's degree was a waste of money and time. Story 106, BFA in dance. Moved to NYC and was a professional dancer and choreographer for about 10 years. Loved it. Ended up performing in an immersive theater show and it clicked. Theater is physical world building, and performing in that world is fun. Went back to school for an MFA in game design. Now I build digital worlds as a video game developer. It's fun, and my knees don't hurt. Story 107. When I decided to major in psychology, nearly everyone in my life told me the degree would be useless, and I almost majored in accounting because of it. One of the best decisions of my life was to ultimately ignore those ears and study the subject I was most passionate about. Interestingly enough, I don't even see that major listed in this thread. I worked several jobs in human resources, what I refer to as business psychology, at least the way I've explored it. I was able to delve into the subject of employee engagement and happiness at several tech companies. Now I'm working admin in the mental health field. Doesn't pay as much as HR, but man, do I love it. I'm considering going to grad school for a master's of social work to be a social worker or therapist later in my career. Story 108. I'm doing fine, and so are many people I know in similar positions. My bachelor's got me in the door, even though my majors were irrelevant. Once I got in the door, I learned the skills I actually need to do my work and leveled up from there. I tell people all the time that the majority of people I've met working in corporate do not have degrees related to what they're doing at all, unless it's for something super specialized like accounting or legal, where you actually have to know about laws and regulations. Otherwise, most of my coworkers work in roles like product, operations, marketing, sales, enablement, customer success, and HR, and have the most random degrees like history, English, geology, biology, art history, psychology, anthropology, etc.